In fact, the very first naturalization law passed in the United States in 1790, this is the very first Congress. One of the decisions they had to make was, who was going to be an American? They got a brand new country. Who is going to be an American? And they said, only free white persons were going to be allowed to naturalize as U.S. citizens. Until 1965, the United States had an immigration policy that was designed to keep the country majority white. So it is only very, very recently that people have started this crazy notion that diversity is somehow a strength, whereas, as I say, wherever you look, wherever you find people who are diverse in race, language, religion, whatever it is, when you ever find diverse people trying to live together, you have conflict. And that is part of human nature, and that is why diversity is a source of tension and conflict, not strength.
Can you give him the mic?
You continue to indulge in your white culture.
Alright, I have one quick comment and a question. I like that you use SAT scores as a measure of intelligence. I happen to have a perfect 800 on my verbal, which is not affirmative action, that's real, and I happen to still think you're wrong. Okay. I think that there's a question to be asked about the conflation of whiteness and ethnicity, as I believe you were doing many times in that previous question. Many people from this country, as you have stated, are from Germany, are from England, are from countries that you would consider white. But whiteness specifically, in its legal history in America, was codified in laws and customs that were used to do violence to people who were not white, including the people who you would seek to defend. Italians were forced to assimilate into a quote-unquote white culture. So when you say you support a white student union, it seems to me you would have to defend the legal use of whiteness in this country, which was used to do things like justify 3/5 of a man, used to justify Native American discrimination. There's a distinction between affirming the ethnic desire to say I'm German and I'm English, and affirming whiteness as it's been used in America as a legal tool to do violence, slavery, and genocide. So when you say you wish to defend associations, it seems you must also defend that how associations and power structures in this country have been produced is through a history of slavery and genocide. You can't say neutral and move between. So you want to defend the current power configurations that determine associations in American politics.
Now, I find this very interesting. You've brought up this 3/5 of a man. You talked about slavery. Did you know that there's a Saudi student union here? Now, Saudi Arabia, as I said before, women don't have any rights there. Saudi Arabia is a dictatorship. There's no democracy there. Saudi Arabia, people who are not Muslims can't practice their religion. Saudi Arabia, I don't know what they do with homosexuals. They hang them, they behead them. There are lots of things wrong with Saudi Arabia today. Now you are in effect saying that Matt Hambach can't have a student union because of slavery. And that was over 150 years ago. Were you here when the Saudi Arabian students got together? Did you drag them over the coals and say, hold on, no, let me finish. Were you here when the Saudi Arabians wanted to organize and say, you answer for this that you're doing today? I'm sure you did not. But you are here asking him to say, because of slavery that happened 150 years ago, you as a white man have no right to organize. Now, I have a hard time taking that seriously.
He asked me a specific question. Sir, I believe you have not answered my argument.
Excuse me?
My argument was that the specific use of whiteness in this country was codified in laws specifically to allocate resources to people who got those resources through violence. Capture of black Africans and Native Americans. So why don't you celebrate a white history as opposed to the English history or the German history? Why specific the color of whiteness, which is a tool for violence, only in this country as opposed to your supposed love of the English German ethnicity?
Because if I walk into Harvard and somebody decides, well, there goes a white guy, and I'm going to attack him because he's white, that person is not going to say, is he German? Is he a Wasp? Is he Italian? No. The crucial aspect of what defines people in this country is not European ethnicity. The things that every other group, a Hispanic or white or a black or Asian, looks at is race. That is the crucial definition. If there's a race riot, and the Hispanics decided to beat up the whites. So they're going to say, well, we're just going to beat up only the Italian Americans. No. The crucial dividing line is race, and that's why it is the obvious line on which to organize.
So you would defend they created the racial division and maintained the racial division to use the term like whiteness, as opposed to deconstructing slavery, which seems equal violence like that.
The racial divisions exist, whatever we say about them. Race is a biological fact, and pretend otherwise is simply silly.
How you doing? My name is Tendai. My question is a two-part question. The first one I wanted to know, do you define diversity as a race or a cultural issue?
Well, that's a good question. Diversity, theoretically, has a lot of different elements. As I said in my prepared remarks, language, religion, all of these things, ethnicity, all of these things, sexual orientation, for example, is diversity. All that goes into diversity. But let's imagine a university here in the United States in which all of the students come from 10 different European countries. 10% are from France, 10% from Italy, 10% from Germany. It would really be a diverse university. But if they were all white, people would say, no, that's not diverse. Because there has to be racial diversity in order for it to be considered genuine diversity. That is the most important ingredient in most people's standards for diversity. I think that if you're talking about diversity, that's in effect an artificial standard, but that's the way it works. So that a university of the kind that I'm describing, I think that if you're interested in the merits and the fascination of diversity, you'd have a fascinatingly diverse university of that kind. But if it were all white, no, that's not diverse. That's not good enough.
Based off that point,
yes.
I have no objection to a white student union because half my family is white.
Well, is that the only reason?
No.
Right.
Based on that issue, I also understand that you and others of your complexion have issues as far as getting employment, as far as going to school, because people don't know. I was accepted into MIT a long time ago, but I didn't go there. But if you were Asian, it's harder to get into MIT than if you were black, white, or Mexican, based on the unproportional percent that do apply to MIT.
Yes,
so there is an issue that others are ignoring here that is not race as you are or they are taking it. It's more basically they are people, just like every one of us, that have issues and they want to come together to talk about those issues. Now, those issues may be disliking others, liking others, not getting along. It doesn't matter. You know, black people get together and they talk about those same things. Why shouldn't they?
Sure. Well, I think that's very fair-minded. I salute you. I think most black people, in fact, if you approach them in a reasonable way and say, look, you have interests, you wish to get together with other black people and talk about things that are of interest to you, we as whites wish to do the same thing. I think most black people would say, sure, that sounds entirely fair. Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Mike Jenkins, One People's Project. First of all, before I ask my question, I just want to point out you were born in Japan and you listen to B.B. King, so you're the product of diversity. I mean, you appreciate diversity in your personal life, in your private life, so I don't see why you would have an issue. But I digress from that because I got to point out something here. I think the main reason why a lot of people have an issue with the white student union here at Towson, I see it when you were speaking here today, and the first question you made the point just now. You've just been talking about everyone else. You have not been talking about white culture. You've been more or less complaining about what is being done to white people in your mind or what have you. And to speak to the gentleman's question about white supremacy, you didn't include in your remarks the mantra that you generally use where you say that black people are genetically inferior to whites intellectually.
I've never said that.
You bring up Harvard Jensen, you bring up Phyllis Rushton, they've been at your conferences, but I'll let you respond to that in a minute. My question is, you see a lot of people concerned. This is the concern. Is the white student union here in Towson going to be some sort of tool to lash out at all the other students on campus? Because if that's the case, of course they're going to be upset.
Look. If you were going to organize a student group to lash out at all the other groups, what kind of possible activities would you have? That has never happened among whites on a university campus that I have ever think of. No one ever even wants to do that. In the United States today, the idea of white people getting it, okay, who are we going to attack today? That is absurd, and you know it. Now, when it comes to, no, that's absolutely absurd.
It happened last year.
Furthermore, yes, you said that I've been talking about systematic racial discrimination against whites. Yes, I have. Now, is that not a legitimate grounds for organizing? If blacks were subject to systematic racial discrimination, of course they would organize. You'd be the first to tell them to organize. But for whites, it doesn't count. Whites, there's a double standard. No, for whites, no matter how they are discriminated against, they must not organize. That's your view?
But sir, I've been to your conferences.
Give him the mic.
I've been to your conferences. I've seen people there, yeah, the ones that didn't shut down. The conferences included a lot of people, including David Duke, who I met there, that do not share a view that where you say whites should be left alone, everyone else should not be. They talk about white supremacy. I mean, Duke was a member of the Klan. And Stephen Barry, who people don't necessarily know, he tries to form militia groups, racial militia groups. They were there.
Are you holding me responsible for what Stephen Barry does? Is that what you're trying to do? That's just crazy. Yeah, look. If you attended one of my conferences, that means they're open to the public, aren't they? That means that I cannot be held responsible for your views, or for Stephen Barry's views, or for anybody's views who comes to a conference that's open to the public.
Fair enough, but what is there on the podium?
Okay.
David Duke has never been on the podium. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Taylor, thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
coming. Can you name one thing that motivated you to get into this activism?
One thing. Fairness. Fairness. That's the main thing, yes.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well.
My name is Octavia King. I'm a student here in Towson, and your idea of diversity kind of confuses me. Only because when you say diversity at first, you say you want to celebrate diversity by creating this white student union, and then you want to denounce it by allowing white supremacy in the country. Not white supremacy as you would say, but you know, white supremacy. And so,
let me just do one thing straight. I just want to know what white supremacy is. Now, are you saying that if, hold on, no, let me answer this question. All I've said is, if white people want to be left alone to meet together, is that white supremacy?
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, well, I'm not saying, but all you were saying was you want the white majority to last, correct? That's what you were saying.
I think a white country, if it starts out as a white majority, I think that there is no reason why it should replace itself. Absolutely.
No. I don't believe this, only because the people who stepped off that first boat onto this land were not only white. As we know, some black people stepped on there. So there might have been a white majority, but all of you weren't always there. We were there first. And only with westernization, imperialism, and oppression has it come that we act like this, that you guys act like this, like you're more powerful than us. It's not fair that you have oppressed us all of these years, and then you come to complain that I'm the one who's taken away all your rights. That makes no sense to me.
I don't recall saying that you have taken away any of my rights. In any case, no, the whole business, well, what if Nigeria is a black African country. What if, can we have? But you're saying that whites don't have the right to remain a majority in the United States. What about in Europe? Do they have the right to maintain majorities in Europe? Do Nigerians have the right to maintain an African majority in Nigeria? The Japanese have the right to maintain their majority status in Japan.
I did not say that you don't have the right to. I'm just saying that you're not going to right now. Why?
Well,
because it doesn't make sense that you're oppressing. You oppress everyone since the dawn of time. Since the dawn of time. No, since we came to this country, you oppressed all black people. Is that incorrect?
I think most black people were off in Africa. There was no way we could be oppressing them. How did we oppress the people who were in Africa?
We raised people as African countries.
Please settle down. I'm asking very nicely. This is supposed to be a question and answer session. Let's continue.